disrespected person in America is the black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the black woman. The most neglected person in America is the black woman.
Black girls rock!
Good morning and happy Saturday to our panelists and all of our attendees joining us this morning. I am Kimberly Saunders, President of the Central Florida chapter of the National Black MBA Association, Inc. And on behalf of our chapter board, we look forward to sharing this event with you today to celebrate Women's History Month. As you can see on the screen, I'd like to introduce you to our 2021 Central Florida Chapter Executive Board, Ms. Tanya White, our VP of Administration, Camille Dixon, VP of Finance, Haley Miller, VP of Marketing, Gary Moses, Assistant Treasurer, and Stephanie Hampton Best, past President. So that our incredibly talented panelists can have the majority of the time with you today, we're going to get down to business. So I would like to introduce at this time our also talented moderator, Mrs. Servola Frazier, CEO of Motivate Enterprises, LLC.
Well, good morning, everyone, and I am so excited to be here with you today. This is going to be an amazing event. I hope you all will be active in our chat box today. So please go ahead and get yourselves familiar with that space. Use that as a space to comment, to chat, to ask questions. we're going to be diving into the subject matter, and I am super excited to introduce to you this phenomenal panel of women who are going to be sharing with each and every one of you today. So unbuckle your seatbelts and let's get ready. It's going to be an exciting journey. And for those of you who don't know, today we're talking about I Am Speaking. Well, let's get started. We're going to jump in, and I'd like to take a moment to just introduce our panelists that we have for today. First, and certainly first on the list, is Jackie Butler. And I'm super excited to introduce Jackie. She is the Vice President of Human Resources for Marriott Vacations. She specialized in diversity and inclusion. She's had a superior track in that, and she is on top of the world, guys. She is a inclusive and diversity strategist and expert when it comes down to understanding the structure. She not only has national but global experience, and I'm super excited for us to have her with us today. Over 20 years of HR business related experience. I hope you guys are ready. I hope you got your questions ready. We've got some wonderful ladies that are going to be sharing with you in our time together today. Next up, we have Cheryl McDuffie James. And Cheryl is the CEO of Business Imaging. She's been in business for over 15 years, and she is a human capital maximizer. I'm sure tons of you out there who are watching today and who are scoping in on this session are probably like, oh, what is that? And you'll have your opportunity to definitely ask her questions as we go through our time. She is passionate about people and making sure that we maximize our potential. And next we have Joni Wilson Ferguson, and she is the founder of Leaders Amplify, a professional development organization that focuses on transforming highly technical individuals into contributing leaders. And listen, she's done work with Walt Disney. She is a phenomenal woman and has tremendous accolades. I'm going to give them an opportunity to go in deeper into what they have to share. But ladies, next, I'm sure you guys are probably thinking, boom, like this is so awesome. Like we've got a powerful lineup of women and it just keeps getting better. Next, we have Kimberly Rosser Jean-Louis, and she is the proud owner of 3D Strategic Management. She has done work with Essence, Disney, Coca-Cola, Facebook, you name it, guys. And she specializes in helping full service, developing small businesses in the diversity and inclusion aspect and community relations. So we have a phenomenal power pack panelists that are here with each and every one of us today. I hope you guys are ready. This is going to be phenomenal. I see you guys being active in the chats and I love it. Keep that energy flowing because we're going to have a dynamic time together. Well, I'm going to give each one of our panelists an opportunity to share a little bit about themselves before we jump into the topic, just anything they want you guys to know. And I hope you guys will start getting your questions poised as we get ready to get started. So I'm going to go in the exact order that I went in to introduce. So Jacqueline, we're going to come to you first. Just share a little bit about yourself with the group. And then we'll go straight into Cheryl, then into Joni, into Kimberly, in that order. If you guys go right behind each other, that would be awesome.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Savola. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's not often that you hear your bio being read out loud. And when you do hear it, it's just a reminder of, the things that you've accomplished throughout your career and really the reason why we get up in the morning. So thank you so much for that. Good morning, everyone. Thanks to the Central Florida National MBA Association for inviting me to sit on the panel with these wonderful, successful women in honor of Black History Month. I'm excited to be here. And I know that, for the folks on the call, there's so many other places you could be today. So I appreciate you spending the time with us this morning. The only other thing that I wanted to add in terms of what you've shared, with my background, because one of the things that I'm absolutely proud of in terms of my in addition to my career accomplishment, is that I'm a mommy. I'm a mother to two beautiful girls, Kylie, who is 16 years old, getting ready to prep her for college. I can't believe it. And then Zoe, who is my baby. She's 11. She wants to be known as that she's 12. So she's 11 and a half, almost 12, but from now on, we're going to say that she's 12. And I don't know if Zoe is on the call today. If you are, hi, Zoe, and mommy loves you. And I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl.
There we go. Had to get unmuted here. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me. It is Saturday morning, and so I'm trying to get with it. So I'm actually very excited to be here this morning, and I'm just like Jackie, I really appreciate the people who made time to get up and get at it, because I know Saturday is a day of trying to recuperate from the week. I'm really looking forward to hearing from each of you who have come to hear us today, and literally hear about what you want to know about women in business and how we have had our speaking moments. The only thing I would add to what has been shared is that I am very passionate about generational leadership. And so one of the things that I am being very intentional about in 2021 is making sure that I am able to reach back and help those who are younger, who are trying to find their way in leadership, and specifically women. So in honor of Women History Month, I'm very excited to be here, and hopefully I'll bring value to you today. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Cheryl. My name is Toni Wilson Ferguson. Like the other panelists, I'm very excited to be here talking about this subject. It's something that sits close to my heart. It's important for us. I'm so excited, even on a Saturday morning, you know, where you got kids doing stuff. My neighbors are out here banging on the roof for some reason, but you guys made the time to join us. The one thing I want to add, in addition to what was read about my bio, I'm actually a senior leader at the Walt Disney Company now, serving under digital analytics. So I work with sales analytics insights for consumers, which is one of those highly technical roles and highly technical areas that you don't often hear about. So when we start talking about the I am speaking moment, not only am I in a very male dominated discipline, it is also a discipline where there are not a lot of people who look like me. So this really sits home. It's a part of why I have Leaders Amplify, to help technically driven, technically backed people to go into leadership, because it is important to get representation at the table, making the decisions, bringing in an inclusive environment so that we don't continue to have those one-offs. You're the only one, or you're the one and only. So thank you all very much, and I'll turn it over to Kimberly.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Hello, ladies, queens. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to Stephanie Hampton Best and the leadership at the National Black MBA. I thank you for this opportunity to address everyone and learn today, because what we're here for. We all have a test, and we're going to give a testimony today. So just like Cheryl, I'm a mom of 3, and that's important for us to say, because you're trying to balance this thing called life and business and entrepreneurship. You have to, if you have kids, hearing from someone who has kids. So I have a 22-year-old at FAMU, go Rattlers. I have a 15-year-old who's a 9th grade volleyball, very active volleyball student and athlete. And I have a 3-year-old. Did y'all brace yourself? Yes, I have 22, 15, and 3. Am I crazy? Possibly. But you also have to be crazy to be in business. So I want to talk today, and I'm so excited about encouraging you, if you haven't started Entrepreneur Journey, to jump. I want you to jump. And I'm going to take today how to jump and how to soar and how to enjoy the experience along the way. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, I hope you guys have really taken the time to listen in to our panelists as they've introduced themselves, and I hope you are ready. On your screens right now, there is a poll. And if you would, please take an opportunity to go ahead and complete the poll. This gives us an idea of who's in the space, but it also helps to direct our conversation today because we want to add value to each and every one of you. You've heard it from every single panelist. There's been this rolling theme of wanting to pour back into you. They've found their seat at the table. They brought their seat to the table. And now we're here to really hear from you so that we can help you to actually be able to step into that. So I hope you all will take a moment and please go ahead and fill out the poll that's right there in front of you because we want to hear from each and every one of you as we get started. So I am speaking, and we've heard this. This has been really championed and brought to our attention, but it's not something that we are unfamiliar with, right? We've got women in the room who are entrepreneurs. We've got college students in the room. We've got those who work full-time and, well, you know, entrepreneurs work full-time too. I'm a business owner, so yes, we work full-time. But we also have those who work for others and those who work for themselves. So I want to champion all of you and applaud all of you for just taking the time to be in this space today. I'm super excited for us to jump into this. We've all had moments in our lives where we've been in a space where someone has silenced us or tried to. And we've had to step into that role, knowing the stigma that is on us as African-American women, that we can have those what we call angry Black women moments, but we're not angry. Yes, we're Black and we understand that, but we also are intelligent. We also are experts in our field and we have things to say that really add value. So let's address the stigma that's on women, particularly African-American women, as being aggressive versus assertive in their professional careers. And let's talk about how you've maneuvered to make your presence known while battling that stigma. And we know that stigma is there. We've experienced it. And we're not going to put up a facade today. That's not what we're here for. We are going to be real. We're going to just let our hair down, so to speak, and just let it out so that you guys can truly receive the value. So Jackie, I'm going to come to you first, if you don't mind. And let's dive into this. How did you maneuver, you know, that stigma and really allow your presence to be made known?
That's an amazing question. And, you know, believe it or not, these stereotype about Black women being angry and aggressive, this dates back to like the 1800s, right? So back then, Black women were portrayed as being loud or masculine or unattractive. And we all know that's not true. Look at us. I mean, we're beautiful professional women who are smart, intelligent, you know, successful, doing our thing. I think one of the things that is unfortunate is that there's such a double standards, right? And I know that there's some males on the call today, but you know, I will say that in honor of Women's History Month, we need to speak and make sure that we're being heard. So, you know, there is a double standard. If a male in a work environment is confident or strong or a driver, those are the things that define success for a man. But if a woman shows up in that way, we all know she'll get called names, right? And so one of the things that I've tried to do is, you know, pretty early on in my career, I've had some of those moments. But I think through building confidence and demanding respect, I think one of the key things is in any relationship that you're in, whether it's a coworker, a peer, a subordinate, your personal relationship, respect is key. And I think that, you know, one of the things that I try to do is be respectful to others, and I demand that respect back as well. And I think as Black women, we have to be able to portray that and demand respect from others. And, you know, sometimes we're in moments where we may have to be firm and check someone and not be afraid to do that either, and do it in the most appropriate way. still maintain your professionalism in the way that you're interacting with someone. But I do believe that, one of the things that has helped me to get to where I am is because I show up in a respectful way, and I demand that from the folks that I work with and that I partner with. And if I'm in a situation where something went awry, I'm not afraid to have a conversation with that individual.
I love it. And I think that we have all been in a situation where we've had to quote unquote check someone, and we may not feel like we've addressed that in that way, right? So we're trying to make sure we stay on this line of professionalism and show up as a professional, but at the same token, we're trying to guard against this idea or this stereotype that's out there lording over us, so to speak, trying to tell us how we're supposed to silence ourselves or somehow shrink back because we have to address something. So Kimberly, I saw you nodding your head a lot while Jacqueline was talking. You were nodding your head. So I want to hear from you. How have you had to maneuver or deal with that stigma that, as a Black woman, you're angry because you have to be assertive or you have to address someone to hold them accountable for something?
I'm following directions and I was on mute. So there is a double standard, and I agree with you, Jackie, is that when you're walk into corporate America, you own your own business, a male could say, I need you to go make these copies. Thank you. But, and so it's understood that's what you're going to do. But sometimes as a woman or a Black woman, you say, I need you to make these copies. If you don't say, please, thank you, you're amazing, you're the best, I love you, how you feel today? Then you're seen as maybe a different way. So it is a double standard. But the thing is, you have to find your voice and you have to find your brand. So Jackie said her brand is respect, right? You have to be able to find your brand and what defines you in whatever industry that you're in. And so for me, my brand has been respect. My brand has been knowledge, making sure I'm the most knowledgeable person in the office because I want to make sure if something happens, I'm accountable for being able to lead the team. I'm also big on loyalty. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. If it means driving to Miami yesterday, going to a conference and driving back so I can be here at 10 o'clock in the morning, I am going to do it. The other thing you talked about is your presence. Listen, my queens, they already see you when you walk into the room. They see you. For me, I'm 5'11" with big hair, big cheeks, big eyes, big lips, and I love. So I'm gonna greet everybody in the room. Okay, you have to own that. That's who you are, right? But at the same time, you have to find out how you dress it up and how you keep it professional and how you carry yourself. And the other thing too is that you want to make sure you have buy-in from key people. In every organization, there's a key person. It's not necessarily the CEO. It could be the janitor, who everybody goes to the janitor to find out what's going on, what should we do, how should we do it? And a lot of times they're looking for that person to tell them what to do if it's not you. So it's important that one, you respect everyone in any organization equally. And then you find out who's the person that's the key person, and you make sure that you are in alignment and you explain and you go over your vision, your mission, and why it's important, whatever decision you made or gonna make, that is important to the team. So those are some things that I wanted to share with everyone, and I hope that it helped.
Wow. I hope you guys are catching these nuggets that they're dropping because they are powerful. Like I'm over here writing down while we're having this conversation, because I think it's important for us to understand that though they may be this quote unquote double standard, we still cannot allow ourselves to be subjugated to a lower standard. We have to still represent, own the room, get buy-in, respect everyone, and understand and know who the key people are. Man, this is awesome. Next, we're going to hear from Joni because I think that she has something to share with you guys. I saw her nod in her head while Jacqueline was talking, while Kimberly was talking, and I think there's so much to be shared about this topic. And it looks like we may have lost her for a second there. So Cheryl, I'm going to come to you. let's hear from you. You've experienced this in your space that you've had to kind of maneuver. And there may be times where we may be timid or shy or even have have a introverted personality. And here we go. Here's Joni. Give me just a second, Joni. But even in that introversion, so to speak, we still have to kind of step out of our shell and be who we are and really demand that respect, but not in a way that other people will assume that we're demanding it. So Cheryl, if you would share on that, share how you've had to maneuver, how you've had to overcome this stigma, and then Joni, will come right back to you.
Well, thank you. So yeah, actually, I think it's very interesting because you just picked up on something I think that a lot of times we don't fully understand or may not have uncovered about ourselves. And that is that some of us are more collaborative and we are more willing to work together and support others. And others are very assertive. We take the lead and we drive. And so that's something that's natural in our behavioral style. And so that just because you're a Black woman does not necessarily mean that you come off as aggressive or assertive, right? And so I think that's where you want to start. But I also think a lot of this starts with you, because I think if you start to understand yourself and how you naturally show up, then you can start to look at other things that can make you come off more effectively. So look at your, think about your tone, your pitch. Listen, to what's being said, because a lot of times we may make assumptions because we don't really know who's speaking and who's coming at us, and we may take that in a negative way. But again, that person may naturally be an assertive or aggressive person, so they come at you that way. So it really may not be about you at all. The other thing is, look at how do you best assert yourself. And one of the things I find that's really helpful when you feel like you're under attack is to use probing questions to better understand what, where the person is and where they're coming from, because that can diffuse the situation as well. And, when you do those things, watch your body language, use eye contact. All those things really say something about you and how you show up in your presence, but it doesn't mean that you're coming off in a negative light. So I think that a lot of this is if we can better, and this all goes to emotional intelligence, I think the better we understand ourselves and how we show up and what's happening around us, I think the more impactful we can become when we're in situations like that.
Wow.
I just want to add to what you just said too, Cheryl. It's important to understand yourself, but it's also important to understand the folks that you're interacting with, right? And so to your point, there are folks that we all show up in a different way just because of our DNA, our personality, our traits, our leadership styles. But I think it's important that, when you're interacting with someone, that you're using that opportunity to build relationships as well. And once you build that relationship, if in the work environment, we all know that it can get very tense. I mean, there's a lot of stress that's on us, especially these days, dealing with the pandemic. I mean, there's millions of folks who've been laid off, and, thank goodness for the folks who are still actively working, but there's so much more that's being asked of you if you're in that position, right? So I think making sure that you're building those relationships with the folks that you're working with, so that it makes it a little bit easier for you to have those conversations, right? And it could be a situation where the tensions are high, and we all know that we act out of character when there's a lot of tension, or when there's stress, there's demand on us. But don't be afraid to walk out of that situation, to say now's not a good time. And we will, we'll circle back and we'll address this, right? When the tensions are, when we're back in a better playing field. So I think when we show up in the work environment, it's not being afraid to, just even have some of those difficult conversations as well. Because the other person could be going through something that we don't know about, right?
Yeah, I love it. We have the old saying that says you catch more flies or bees with honey, and you've got to realize that sometimes you may be facing something, but having that empathy to put yourself in someone else's shoes helps you to be able to understand. And actually, maybe sometimes we can come off and we don't recognize that the other person may be struggling, maybe dealing with something, may have a lot of pressure on their plate, and they are not in a space where we are as leaders to actually step into their role or their function in that way. And so guiding them, being that person that's going to mentor them or help them to navigate that is really important. You know, I think that there's moments I remember distinctively, and Joni, I'm coming to you next, to share with us a moment, if we could visualize it, where you've had to maneuver. I remember I was in a conference call, business meeting, and I was helping a client, and one of my counterparts pressed the mute button while I was in the middle of talking. And I was like, all Black girl was going to come out. But I held her back and I began to just kind of navigate the conversation and said, okay, I'm curious as to why this occurred. So going back to something that Cheryl has said, I began to ask questions, and it helped me to cool my jets so that I wouldn't come across as, no, you didn't. Like, we need to have a talk, you know, we need to step outside for a second. But Joni, what is the experience? Tell us the story of your experience, how you've had to maneuver and overcome that stigma.
Thank you. So first of all, I apologize for the Zoom. I think either my neighbors are tearing up the street or they just fell off the roof. So it's interesting. The way that I navigate this stereotype is really, I needed to understand what it was about. I think at the root of all of this, you have to think through the miseducation, the willful ignorance, the fear, and kind of do the what's next. So for me, I had to ask myself not only what's happening now and why is this happening, but then also the what's next. I think the other thing that I needed to understand was, why is this thing so pervasive? No matter what people, Black women, are able to do, no matter what we accomplish, we still have to fight this stereotype. And so, you know, just to kind of put things in perspective, because I'm a numbers girl, there about 30% of the population in the United States are white males. However, they over-index at both the VP level and the C-suite level. They're at 55 to 65% of those particular roles, versus Black women, who make up less than 10% of the US population. However, they're also less than 2% at each of these VP and executive roles. So it's understanding what you're up against, right? That's why this thing is so pervasive. So we talked about branding yourself. What is your brand? We've talked about respect. We've talked about loyalty. For me, mine is really about, I'm the best at this role. I'm the best that you will ever encounter. And so that is the brand that I put forward. I'm more than competent at my job. I'm more than willing to drive the value for the organization. And oh, by the way, I'm more than willing to stand up for myself in the face of controversy. That is my brand. It took me a while to get there. I wasn't always there. Young in my career, you know, we've been conditioned very well, whether it's undergrad, whether it's business school, how you show up. You know, Black suit, blue suit, you don't wear your hair too long, red lipstick is out, right? We get all of these conditioning cues that we suddenly have to unlearn. For me, it was very important to unlearn this stuff because it wasn't getting me anywhere. And so once I decided that I am going to step into who I am, I'm going to understand how I show up, I'm going to understand where the value lies for me that I can push forward, which again is competence in roles that I'm probably not supposed to be in. I've been mistaken for the administrative assistant in a large meeting of executives, right? How do you handle that? How do you handle, and it's not disrespect, it's just a matter that you didn't take the time to understand who was in the room. That's more on you than it is on me. And then I think also we have to have these learning moments. I think that when these things happen, you have to, like you said, you have to take the step back, but it's also that moment to teach. My one concern in all of this, where we're getting better about having these conversations about race in the organization, my concern is that we always talk to ourselves about these things. We now have to take that conversation and give it to the people who don't look like us. They need to understand from where this bias comes, and then also why we won't tolerate the bias any further. So I do think that as we learn more about this, we have to learn more about the people that we're encountering. We also have to learn more about ourselves in this new purview. So again, it's your brand, it's your willingness to speak up, and it's your willingness to have this teachable movement for not only yourself, but for everyone around you.
I want to jump in
Wow.
and kind of comment on something that I heard Joni say, and I've heard from some of the other panelists around knowledge and competence.
Yes.
I think one of the biggest lies we're told coming out of school as we enter the workforce is if we work hard, we'll reap a reward, right? And so I think what happens, and this is for the younger people on the call, I really want you to hear this, and this is women who are, you know, under 40. I think this is still very impactful. You can change your course. I think those of us that are over 50, we probably have already found this out, but that is a myth. And yes, we have to show up with knowledge and competence, but that is not going to get you to win. That is a baseline. That is something we all have to show up with. So, you know, don't underestimate your ability to know and to be proficient in what you do, but that's not going to get you the reward. So what becomes, Jackie touched a bit on leadership. If you, depending on what you desire, everyone there is a baseline of thinking, yes, you know what you're doing, but it's all the other things, the relationships you build, and then being very strategic about those relationships, understanding what you want, and then crafting a plan on how to get there, engaging people who can not just mentor you, but sponsor you. Because mentorship is really, I think, important, particularly in your early part of your career, because you're trying to learn and understand the framework. But I think sponsorship becomes even more important once you decide, now I'm ready to make that move. Another thing I think women do in general is that we think we have to check all the boxes. You take a male counterpart and they're offered an opportunity, or there's an opportunity that they want to see. They may have 50% of what the organization is looking for, but guess what? They will raise their hand and they will get in the mix. But for us, we think we have to be 80, 90, 100%. Oh, I can't, I need to work on this, I want to work on that. Part of growing in leadership is being in this continual form of development. You aren't going to have 100% of everything you need when you step in the room. However, getting in that room shows you have the ability to acquire what you need to continue to sit at that table and to drive change. So, you know, I think one of the things that we need to do is get away from being so competent and knowledgeable. That's a baseline. Everyone expects that. But start focusing more on how do we leverage that in a situation to get what we want. And don't look for other people to help you get there. One of the things I'm seeing that's playing out in organizations, because I work with global organizations as well as small and mid-sized businesses, and the big deficit that I see is that in big business, it's like there is no career pathing anymore. You know, that used to be in the days before, and Jackie probably can speak to this better, and Joni, because they are working in organizations, but everyone's kind of like, what is my path? How am I going to get from point A to point B? Listen, those days are gone. It is time for you to step in, figure out what you want. If you don't know what's available, start looking at those people and trying to build relationships within the organization in areas that you may be interested in. Ask for projects, to get on special projects, to get yourself at the table with some of those people in the organization.
Right.
We have to take control of our careers. We have to assert ourselves there. That's where that assertion is going to help us.
Right. Well, I hope you guys are jumping into this. I'm reading through and thumbing through some of the chat here. Kimberly, on spot, build your brand, respect, loyalty, knowledge, presence, well said, self-awareness is key. Yes, good nuggets, Cheryl. Good point, Cheryl. Great information. Know your style, watch your tone, the body language, ask probing questions. Got it. Understand your leadership style and that of others. And not just, I would say, not just your leadership style, but also your communication style versus somebody else's communication style. And I'm sure we're going to jump into a heap more of this. We've got about 8 minutes left in the first portion of this, and we've only gotten through one question. I know you guys are ready to get some more. So let's jump into this. I know that we're not going to get through everybody with this. So hang in there with us. We'll take a break in just a moment, and then we'll come back in and answer more in this alignment. But let's talk a little bit about when you had your I am speaking moment, and what did you learn in that moment? And you guys have kind of shared a little bit of the tips of what you learned to in order to impart value into others. But in that very moment, whether it was somebody muting you, like I had that moment, or whether it was someone telling you don't speak when you go into a meeting, I had that moment too. What did you learn in those moments that you can share with others? When did you have this speaking moment, I am speaking moment, and what did you learn? Kimberly, then Joni, coming to you guys. Kimberly, when did you have that moment, and what did you learn? Did you have to do some self-talk and be like, girlfriend, you gotta pull this together, girl? Go ahead, Kimberly.
So I saw the stats of who's on the call, and I want you to know that I'm speaking, that moment actually came for me in phases, right? So in my 20s, I was working for a large department store, and I was recruited out of FAMU to work for this large department store as a manager. And I had been taught at FAMU about my voice and about my intellectual property and standing on my own 2 feet and all those great things, ethics and all those things. It's different in the real world. So I'm in this meeting first week, and the store manager calls me in, and another person who graduated from FAMU, and she says, I want to welcome you to my store. And she was a Caucasian female. And she had a Caucasian young male assistant in the room with us, and both Jamila and I were African-American females, Black. And she said, I want to have a party for you ladies to welcome you to my store. And I think I'm gonna have some fried chicken, some watermelon. She looked at her assistant and she's like, some Kool-Aid, some juice, some Kool-Aid. Yeah, and I'm sitting there, I'm 22. Fresh out of FAMU. And I was like, what? And I'm looking at Jamila, and I'm looking at her, and I'm looking at this woman. And in that moment, I said, oh, I can't stay here. I cannot stay here. The problem is that you will find that inclusion and diversity and acceptance of who you are and your value will not come to you just because are you qualified? So I left, eventually I left like a month later, and then I went to work somewhere else. And so there was a series of places that I worked that I found that I had to find my voice, because if I didn't find my voice, I was going to be treated second class, okay? And so for those that are employed, because I saw the stats, most of the people on this call are employees, you have to know that they hired you because you had the qualifications and that you have the merit, but you also have the right to be able to speak your truth. So for me, the biggest aha moment for me, and when I said, okay, enough is enough, is when I had an employee yell at me because he had sent me an email, and I had responded to the email, but he didn't see the response. And in his haste of yelling at me, I said, you cannot yell at me. My mother doesn't yell at me, and she gave birth to me. None of the women, all my aunties who were business owners, poured into this chocolate girl, they didn't yell at me. Now they talk very stern, and I got discipline, but yelling at me in a demeaning way, I had not experienced that. So I had to find my voice, and I said, you will not yell at me. You will not yell at me. Please, let's stop. And in the moment, you have to fact find. Okay, when you find your voice, you have to fact find in that moment. So we pulled out our phones. You want to pull up the email? Let's just take a moment. Let's just pull up the email. He saw the email, and he said, well, next time, just let me know earlier than when you did. I said, I won't own that either. I won't own that you didn't check your email. What I will own is that I will not be treated that way again. And if you treat me that way again, I will leave, but I won't leave quietly because I know the rules and regulations. You will treat me as a woman, as a person who is strong enough to do the job. That's why you hired me. And I've been a top producer of this company. You will not treat me that way. And when I had that moment, I had to like conjure up all my family ancestral strength, but I had to know that in that moment, I deserved to be treated better. And so as employees, you have to look at how you deserve to be treated. And if you're working somewhere and they're not treating the way you're supposed to be treated, start looking for somewhere else. Indeed, a couple other places you can look, okay? Because I'm a Christian, put that out there. As a woman of God, he did not put me on this planet to be mistreated in any capacity. But he did give me the opportunity to be able to grow my intellectual property so that I can be the best I can be in an environment. And if I'm wrong, I'm gonna say I'm wrong. But in that moment, my voice came from not ever wanting to be disrespected. So that's where
Wow.
aha moment.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I never had that one. We're gonna have some
Yeah.
fried chicken and some Kool-Aid and some
I was young. I could not believe that.
right.
But it happened, and I'm not the only one. If you poll some other folks, they've been disrespected. They've been had discrimination, and they've had it bluntly as that. But
Yeah.
I didn't know who I was, and I didn't know how to respond. So I wanted that additional story for the young. I saw the polls. We have some millennials that are on today. You are to never be disrespected.
Yes. Joni, I'm coming to you. We've got about a minute and a half left in this segment, but don't worry, I'll give you some more time at the top of the hour in our next segment. But share with us, I saw you nodding your head. I know there's some correlation between what Kimberly experienced and something that you've experienced. So go ahead and share with us in this last moment before we jump into the next part of our session.
So I had a fried chicken and Kool-Aid moment too. I don't know what it is about the chicken and the Kool-Aid, but it happens. I had one of those. And honestly, I responded in the way that they expected. Because I was young, that's just what I was. I hadn't quite learned what that meant and how I needed to navigate that. The second part of that is I was called in the early part of my career a pit bull in a skirt. And it was so disrespectful. And it, you know, like Kimberly said, it wasn't a moment of I'm speaking. It was a series of moments that led up to, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore. I'm undervalued. I'm overwhelmed. Every interaction I have feels like I'm going to burst into tears in this office. I was sick of it. And it was in that moment that I ran into two advocates. So we talked about having advocates with this aggression perception. I had two advocates who literally came to me and said, if you're going to make it in this business and you're going to be a leader, you better find your voice. You know your business. So just like Cheryl said, you know your business. You know how to operate with all these people, but we never know you're in the room. You must find your voice. And I did. I went and I did what was comfortable for me, which was learning and asking questions and you know, going out and doing some research and just grounding myself. And then I learned the value of self-talk. How you show up is as much dependent on what you're saying in your head in those moments of conflict, those moments of ambiguity, as what is actually coming out of your mouth. So that was the value that I learned. It was the advocates and it was the self-talk, to go in and say, you know what, I deserve to be here. I'm going to take up space. I read Lean In. Let me bring my computer, my notebook, my pencil, I'm bringing everything. I'm taking up all the space. I don't care where y'all got to sit, because you needed to do that in order to get that confidence to take your voice and say, I'm on mission. It's my career. It's my organization. And so if those two things keep you on mission focus, then you're willing to utilize your voice, because you know that without it, you don't progress. Your organization doesn't progress, and you're not able to get those little chips that help you with all this relationship and networking and your what's next. You don't get it if you don't talk.
Wow. I hope you guys have really gleaned a lot. We've got questions pouring in. I think one of the questions was just answered. What was the best advice you have been given? And that was find your voice and own it and learn how to use your voice. And there's so much to be said about all of this stuff, and us recognizing not just that we have a voice, but how to use that voice effectively, how to influence effectively with our voice. I think that people know that we have a voice, but they don't know that we're knowledgeable enough or experienced enough to be able to influence in a way that's appropriate with the voice that we have. I remember distinctively sitting in on a session, a negotiation session, and one of the feedbacks that one of my colleagues gave me was they felt that I had too much power. And I thought, what do you mean? And it was just this idea of me being able to navigate the negotiations as effectively as I was doing. He just felt like that was a sense of power and control. And he meant it in one way, I took it in another way, and I said, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for honoring me with that, with those words. And I moved on and locked the deal in and did what I needed to do. But I think we all have those moments where people want to control us and want to help us to navigate what they feel we should be like. And we have to learn how to own our voice and understand our influence and the power that we have in our influence. We're skillful, we're knowledgeable, we're mission focused. We have things that we didn't just get here by happenstance. We got here because we deserve to be in this space. And I love what Joni and Kimberly have shared. We're going to come back. When we come back, we're going to hear from Jacqueline and Cheryl to share on this question. And they're going to have all this time to prepare to be able to respond to you. But I hope you guys are really jumping in. And while we're stepping into just a pause in our programming today, I hope you will go in. I know there's plenty of questions that are out there. You want to, if there's anything you want to know, how did you navigate this? How did you deal with that? What was your response to this? Go ahead and start putting in the chats. Kimberly shared a moment that she had that I didn't have. I didn't have that moment of someone saying, we're going to order some, collard greens. I'm mad now. I'm adding soul food to it. But
I didn't know what to say.
I've never had that moment. I've had other kinds of moments, but not that moment. And I think that we're all conditioned for the moments that we do have. And we all have the strength within us for the moments that we do have. So ladies, go to the chat, start putting in your questions, your comments. We want to hear from you. I'm seeing comments like, I like what you said about building relationships. They're referring to Jackie. And they said, also like showing up in the room to be developed and recognizing that you're learning. We're all learning and growing. And I'm going to turn this back over to our host to share with us in our next portion of our time together.
Thank you so much, Servola, and great first half. I really enjoyed everything that all of the panelists say. So at this time, we're just going to take a quick intermission, about 2 to 3 minutes. The Central Florida chapter would like to honor and recognize a woman in the Central Florida area. And so I'm just going to read a short bio, and then we will bring back our panelists and our moderator and take some questions and answers from the audience.
She was born in Jacksonville, Florida, to James and Eloise Butler, the first in her family to graduate. She worked as a social worker, then joined the Orlando Police Department. After a 27-year career, she was selected to serve as chief for the Orlando Police Department, the first woman to hold that position. During her tenure as chief, she reduced violent crime by 40% and founded new community engagement programs, including Operation Positive Direction, a youth mentoring program. In 2016, Valdez Val B. Demings won the election to Congress in Florida's 10th district, and today serves on the House Intelligence, Judiciary, and Homeland Security Committees. In addition, Representative Demings is a House Regional and Assistant Whip Vice Chair of the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force, co-chair of candidate recruitment for the Domestic Congressional Campaign Committee, and served on the Election Security Task Force. Congressman Demings is married to Jerry Demings, who serves as the Orange County Mayor. The couple has 3 sons and 5 grandchildren. So today, the Central Florida chapter would like to honor Congressman Val Demings during this Women's History Month. In addition to recognizing all of you on the program today and all women making a difference within your families, communities, workplaces, and beyond. We hope you all have enjoyed the conversation thus far. And at this time, we'll have another quick polling question, and I'll turn it back over to our moderator, Servola Frazier, to kick off part 2.
Wow, Listen, we have a legacy of women who are blazing the trail for us to follow. There's been several questions that are popping up, and don't worry, we're going to get to your questions. I'm going to have Cheryl to come and share with us, when did you have your I am speaking moments? And what were those gems, those things that you learned from that experience? Cheryl.
So, that's actually an interesting question because I think for women in general, we have those moments all the time, as early as childhood. I'm a Southerner, so originally from Alabama. And so I was raised in a very traditional Southern household where children were seen, not heard, right? So I think you learn at a very early age that there's a time to speak and a time when people aren't looking to hear you speak, right? And but the intention behind that varies, right? In that case, it was more to helping you build respect and understanding how to, integrate in different situations and what's appropriate from an etiquette standpoint. But I think as you grow, and you move into arenas where your voice is being used to help bring about change or to move forward the agenda, those times when you're being shut down are different than other times. And I think you have to discern between the two. One of the best things, and I didn't start off this way, so I want to be very transparent. I learned through experience, through mentorship, through sponsorship, through self-development on how to be better at handling those moments. But I think one of the key things I've learned is that the time to address that isn't always in that very moment. It is to register it, acknowledge it, it's happening. But maybe the best way to really address what was happening is outside of that situation in a one-on-one to better understand what was that all about. Because what I found more times than not, it's not intentional about me. Again, it's not about us in most cases. And I think we just see it that way. But a lot of times it's the other person who's flawed in whatever they're dealing with. And we're just the ones who get the blunt of it. But I think that there are some very intentional situations at times where it is about shutting us down because they don't want our ideas to come forth. And I think when that happens, one of the techniques I've learned over the years is particularly when someone repeats something I already said and no one really acknowledged it in the room, is when I hear it again, is to take a moment and say, thank you, Bob, for restating what I just shared. I'm glad you saw value to really expand upon that more, in this context. So it's a way of having a voice of saying, I said that. And now you want to restate that, but I say that in a way that it doesn't seem offensive, but believe me, the point gets across. So, I think that, we are having those moments and we'll continue to have those moments. But it's how we handle ourselves in those moments. And what's the goal? Is the goal to move forth in a progressive way so that we can be more harmonious in how we work together and achieve the goal? Or is the goal to say it's a win-lose situation? And I think that's where we can't allow ourselves to get caught up if we want to be productive and moving forward.
I love that. Understanding the goal, right? Your objective. Why are you saying what you're saying? Because I don't think that we always understand that our intent, our purpose behind what we do is the most invisible part of what we do. Right? People can't read that off of us. They make assumptions of that. And so we have to be clear on how we're doing what we're doing and making that invisible thing of our intentions visible. So Jacqueline, I'm coming to you next. We've had some powerful moments shared where women have said, I am speaking, and also sharing some of those key things of what happened. What did we learn? I love the transparency that the three ladies that have went before us have shared, just sharing those vulnerable moments. And Joni just coming straight out and saying, look, I didn't handle it right the first time. I did not get it right the first time, and I think that's important because it lets the younger generation know if you screwed up, you still have time to correct and learn and grow, right? And I think sometimes if we're not careful, that imposter syndrome kind of sneak in and make us feel like, well, we don't deserve it because of what happened before. And Joni's a key example of, no, sister girl, you can actually champion that, use it as a stepping stone to do better and get better. So Jacqueline, I know you've had your I am speaking moment. What did you learn? When did you have that moment? And what did you learn? Has it been like what all the ladies have been saying here, that it's been this stage over time? And I tend to agree with that. But maybe there's been a defining moment where where there's like this culmination of everything that you've experienced. And now it's in this moment and you're like, hey, listen, I am speaking and I need to say something. So when was your I am speaking moment and what did you learn?
I do want to take us back to why we're having this conversation, right? About I am speaking, how that it all came about. And I know most of us on the call, we watched the vice presidential debate last year, and, we witnessed that moment. It was the first time that you had a woman, right, on the panel. And she was also a non-white woman as well. And so, the whole idea around her having to say, I am speaking, I'm just recalling how everything played out and the fact that she even had to say that, right? And when she said it, I just recall that, Vice President-elect Pence still was talking over her. And there were several times throughout the entire debate that even though she said, I'm speaking, he still continued to speak over her, right? Which, we all know that that's very disrespectful, right? Because it's a debate, they both have the floor, it's an opportunity, they both are timed, it's an opportunity for them to state their position, but she had, as a female, had to declare, I am speaking, right? And so, to your point, Cheryl, I don't think this is, specific to a Black woman. It's women in general, but at the same time, I think, the intersection between race and gender for us sometimes makes it even more prevalent, right? And that it's repeated. When I think about the idea of I am speaking, I've had those moments where it's not just about the vocal piece, it's the am I invisible, right? Because I've had some instances or situations where do you even see me? And it could be something as simple. And, I've gotten frustrated in some of these situations where you could be standing in a line at Macy's and you're waiting your turn in the line, right? And somebody will come up and just walk by you and you're being polite and respectful and you're waiting your turn in the line, but somebody comes up and rushes to the counter as if they didn't see that you're there, right? You're standing in the women's restroom and somebody bowls in. I've had a situation where, I think they thought that I worked in the restroom. I hate to even say that, but I've had a couple of those instances where I'm waiting in the line and, somebody else walked in, a female, and not acknowledging that you're there. So I think the idea of I am speaking, it also ties in with, am I invisible? Am I here? Do you hear me? I would agree with what you said, Cheryl, about, my experience growing up. I'm from Jamaica, and I grew up with that same mindset and philosophy of children must be seen and not heard. And so I think I found my voice probably in my 30s. I do remember in my 20s, I was, fresh out of graduate school. It was a presentation training that I was in. I was having a situation where my boss was in the training and she couldn't hear me. You guys know I'm very soft-spoken, but one of the things that I try to do is I don't need to raise my voice to be heard. what some of the tactics that I use is, you know, stay quiet. And when the person finished what they're saying, I will say, you know what, this is my opportunity now. I would like for you to listen while I speak. So I think to your point, Cheryl, about you may not necessarily have to change your personality or your demeanor or how you show up, you know, because for me, it's still about bringing your authentic self to whatever role you're in and making sure that you're finding what works for you. But over time, I've had to find my voice and making sure that I'm using that voice, especially in the role that I'm in, you know, being an HR business partner and working with executives every single day. And most of those executives are white males. They don't look like me. So I go back to respect, because at the end of the day, for me, that's what has worked. I give respect to the folks that I work with, and I also demand respect. And at any point that I feel that that's violated, I'm going to call someone out on it. And it may not be in that moment, because at the end of the day, I go back to what Michelle Obama says always: when they go low, you go high. And I saw that with Vice President Kamala Harris. You know, she stayed calm and cool and collected, but she was firm, right, in terms of making her voice heard. And when she got the forum back, she said what she had to say. And we all know how that result turned out. So, you know, one of the last thing that I want to say on that point is knowing the way that I was raised and knowing that I had to find my voice over time. I'm instilling in my girls, my daughters, that, you know, they're growing up in a totally different environment that I was raised in. And so it's definitely a challenge to help them to find their voice pretty early and making sure that they're using it productively, right? Because if you're a mommy, you know, sometimes it's very difficult when you're teaching your children to have a voice, but then that voice comes back and they're trying to use it against you, right? So it's a very thin line between making sure that we're teaching them at a very young age, especially if they're girls, right? That you should have an opinion, you should have a voice, you should be able to feel comfortable and confident speaking up, but at the same time, demonstrate respect, making sure that you're respecting authority, making sure that you're respecting your teachers or just the people that you're working with. So, you know, that's one of the things that just from my own personal experience and how I've had to learn to use my voice over time, I continue to do that and serve as an example for my girls as well.
I love that you brought that in there and helping us to understand that it's not just us, but it's those who watch us, the women that we mentor, our daughters. I have a daughter and I truly understand how to help her to navigate that influence of using her voice. And she's in her 20s. I know I don't look like I'm in my 40s, but yes, that's me. You know, black don't crack, and thank God for that. You know, but it's a little bit tricky helping them because they're finding their voices a lot earlier than many of us have found our voice. So we're a lot more seasoned in the things that we experience, and they're not as, but they understand the power of the voice, but not the experience, the wisdom, all of that, those things. And it's that those things are a little tricky to help them navigate. So I think that there's a large majority of the women in the room, over 89% of them, who said that they've had that I am speaking moment. Wow. Think about that. We're not exempt. I think it was Cheryl who said earlier, we're all experiencing this and it's not going away. It's not going away. I think someone asked me a question a few months ago, and they were saying, they were basically alluding to the fact that we've had a Black president and we've had all these things that we would champion as accomplishments for African American people and just in our world overall, because what affects us also affects our world. And they said, well, do you believe that that means that we've progressed? And I think that sometimes we feel that progression means that we won't deal with things. Like we won't have these experiences because we've somehow progressed. But I think the polling just showed us that those experiences are still happening. They're still real. They're still going on. And women need other women who are willing to help them step through it, and not put them through it, but help them step through it. So there was a question that came up in our polling, or in the chat box, and it said, it was asking a question about, have you had someone who was a mentor, and what was one of the key things that that mentor said to you that you can take home? So I'm going to spitball these questions, because we're coming down to the crunch of our time. So I'm going to just throw it out there, and I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to answer a question, but it won't be the question. And Kimberly was like, I want that question. So she raised her hand for that. And if you hear a question that you want to answer, go ahead and put your hand up and let me know in our panelists, and I'll let you jump on that question. But Kimberly, we've all gotten advice, right? We've all have people in our space that are in our circle that really influence us and give us advice on how we should step into it. I think that's really important for us to understand. And what has been the most valuable advice that you have received in helping you to navigate your I am speaking moment?
Yeah, I just want to touch on real quick where you said about growth and how far have we come? So only 4% of 500 companies are led by women. Yes, we have grown, but there's a lot more room for us to grow. So ladies that are on, we're looking for you to continue to champion, so that the next time we have this, it'll be 7% and 15% of women that are running these companies. So to answer your question, the biggest advice that I've been given is really that advice that when I was growing up, we all have moms and big moms and aunties who have instilled in us things like a lot of different sayings that they've said. But the most important thing has been said to me is know who I am and knows whose I am, right? And I'm going back to that principle. I remember when I was working for Pepsi, and I had on the black suit, right, Jody? Black suit, blue suit every day, pantsuit, black suit, blue suit every day. And I had Tina White, who was a mentor, say, you look like everybody else. You dress like everybody else. How are you different than anybody else? And in that moment, I had to find who I am. So it started with just even how I present myself and understanding who I am and whose I am. Yes, dressing professionally, but also embracing that I'm Kimberly. And what did that mean? Going back to the brand, what does that mean to be Kimberly Rozier Jean-Marie? And so I would give that to the young ladies and the women that are watching. My key advice would be, know who you are and know whose you are, and then be able to effectively continue to carry that brand in everything that you do.
Wow, so we've got know who you are and know how to represent yourself well in that space or place where you have to, where you're going to have to. There's another question that popped up in the Q&A. Cheryl, I'm coming to you with this question. And it was about emotional intelligence when it comes down to introverts, and helping us to understand those in the space that are introverts, helping them to understand how to build those relationships when it's a little tricky because it's outside of your comfort zone. And how do you do that? How do you develop something that's really outside of your scope, but you really know that you need to do it?
That's a great question. And I do a lot of work with behavioral assessments in my work. And one of the things that I do is help people understand how do they handle people and events, and also their social interactions. And people that tend to be phrased as introverts, we call them more introspective, right? You get your energy from within, where those who actually are more outgoing, they get their energy from others. So if you're trying to figure out which one you are, think about how you manage your energy. So if you're in an all-day meeting, if you're that person, as you're interacting with all those people, you're feeling charged up and really excited, you are that person who is more outgoing and you get your energy from others, right? And at the end of the day, you can still keep going. But if you're that person who's more introspective, you're feeling depleted by the end of the day. Because guess what? Someone like me has taken all of your energy and left you depleted. So you need a few moments to gather your thoughts and recharge yourself alone. So one of the things that I share with people once they realize that they are on a more introspective path naturally is that that's who you are, first of all. So embrace who you are. And then look for opportunities that also are embracing that type of energy. And that will actually help you feel more comfortable. However, to your point, everyone has to step out and interact with people. That's just what we are. We're people, and people need people, kind of thing. But what you want to do is you want to look for those opportunities that being engaged with people isn't the majority of what you have to do every day in a face-to-face or energizing way, but it's part of what you do. So if you have limited interactions, say a project manager, you may be someone that occasionally has to go into meetings and present information, but most of your work is done alone. Those are the kinds of things that kind of keep you from being so depleted as, you know, as an individual, and you can be more happy and more fulfilled. So when you're making these one-off interactions, you do that. Yes, it's outside of your comfort zone and you feel it, but it's not something that you have to maintain to be able to be proficient in what you do. So you just have to recognize we all have the ability to make adjustments in our behavioral styles, but the more we have to adjust outside of what's natural for us, the more we'll feel tension and stress. So if you find yourself at a networking event, know going in, the way you can kind of minimize that for yourself is come in with a plan. Know exactly who you want to meet, what you want to accomplish, so you can be on mission. And that can help you use your energy in a very intentional way so that you achieve what you want to achieve, but then you come out of that knowing that it is going to take some energy from you. You are going to feel a bit tension and stress, but that's okay. But you walk away with a reward. So just know that when you do those things, you will feel it, but it doesn't have to be consistent. The other side of that is don't put yourself in a situation, in a role that requires someone who's always outgoing and interacting with people, because if that's what the role requires, you're going to feel that every day. And
Right.
that's going to be consistent. So those are some of the things that how do you utilize that information and make good choices for yourself.
Do you
I
mind if
love
I
it.
just-
Oh, hold on just a second. I love what you said, because basically you're telling them to set themselves up for success. You know yourself well, so it's important for you to set yourself up for success in knowing yourself. Don't push yourself beyond the boundaries of who you are. And if you do that, then you're only setting yourself up for failure. And we have the power to set ourselves up for success. So put yourself in the best possible place to bring out the best possible you. Jacqueline, you had something to say, and then I'm popping over to Joni with the
Yeah, just
question.
real quick, I do want to add to what you shared, Cheryl, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing, just even as an HR professional and the work that we do from a leadership perspective, because I like what you said too about bringing clarity to what the meaning of introvert and extrovert, right? Because I think a lot of times I'm encountered with situations where people are misunderstood, right? Because society, I think, tends to reward those folks who have an extroverted trait. And so the folks who are introverted tendency, like myself, we have to try a little bit harder, right? Especially when you're in a work environment, because the extrovert sometimes will take all the air and the energy right out of the room. And so, emotional intelligence is starting to get a lot more attention, especially in corporate. And I think it's so well needed, especially because of what's going on in the world today, because we can't just rely on IQ, right? There's a great article that I read about head and heart. You guys can Google it. I mean, that's the direction in which they're saying if you want to be a successful leader, you really have to make sure that you're leading with your head and your heart. And a lot of the EQ comes also from the heart. So I appreciate what you shared, Cheryl. But the one thing that I would say is also I try to practice getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, because there's some things
Yeah.
that it comes with the territory of your job, but it may not be things that you're comfortable doing, but it's okay to get comfortable being uncomfortable and still preserve that energy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a reframing your thoughts thing, right? Recognizing how to reframe your thinking so that you can actually understand what the intent is behind what you're doing. I'm not doing this for no value. I'm doing this to bring value. So, Joni, I'm coming to you. I noticed that you have on your shirt, I believe that your shirt says, "I am speaking." And we have we have a lot of women who are like trying to figure out how they can make their presence known, whether it's in the business environment, because you have that shared experience. You're an entrepreneur, but you also have been in the corporate environment, and so you know how both worlds work. And we experienced it I've experienced that in the corporate and government environment, that are those I am speaking moments, but I've also experienced them with clients in the business arena as well. And so share with us one of those key nuggets that you've garnered from that experience in either one of those spaces. And it could be a centralized theme that runs across both, or it could be nuggets that you've learned in corporate and nuggets that you've learned as an entrepreneur. Joni.
So what's interesting is in both of these worlds, it's really dependent on how you show up and what your plan of attack is, and also your ability to shift and flex and learn when things don't quite go the way that you think that they are. So my one nugget is one, and it's kind of twofold. My motto is courage is my background. And it's because you have to have a certain level of courage to be able to do any of this work. If you want to be a leader, you're going to have to be courageous in the projects that you choose, the people that you work with, the challenges that you undertake. Also in business, I think, I can't remember who it was, but somebody said, hey, let's talk about leaping into entrepreneurship. That is the scariest thing ever, because you're putting yourself out on Front Street for rejection, for people to evaluate who and what you are with minimal information, for them to, think about what it is and then go make up something else, right? It puts you out in front. And it gets really concerning because it's your business, it's your baby, it's your name on the front door, it's your concept, it's your mission, what you think your purpose is. So in all of these things, you have to be very courageous. And I want to talk about too, like not just being courageous, because courageous is not having fear. It is looking at the fear and doing it anyway, and making sure that you're prepared to take on that fear in either aspect. And I'll say that in corporate, I really had to learn that, because I work for Disney. Disney is a ginormous company. It is very easy for you to get lost in the shuffle at that company. It is very easy for you to encounter one person, and that particular reputation will follow you for years and years and years. So you have to take a proactive stance. You have to say, I'm not afraid of what this is. So like when I said that, I had that moment with the fried chicken and the Kool-Aid, like you have those moments and you have to figure out, how do I learn from them? They don't determine, it's not fatal, right? There's failure and then there's fatality. Failure is okay because you can come back from it. Fatality is something very different. And most things that we look at when it comes to courage are not fatal. So my one nugget is keep courage with you. Be willing to do it anyway, do it scared, do it half prepared, just do it.
I love it. I love it. Just do it. And I think it was Kimberly who actually said, jump into entrepreneurship. I was listening to a podcast by a well-known African-American. He was talking about his experience in working for Google and working for Amazon, and how he felt like somehow his Blackness had been silenced. And as he moved up the chain, he also began to realize that it was his Blackness, his culture, his upbringing, all of that brought the value. There's been a lot of talk in our conversation, Kimberly, about authentic selves and how to bring our authentic selves. And when we're having this I am speaking moment, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, it doesn't really matter. You have to learn how to bring your authentic self to the table. I think it was Shirley Chisholm who said that if they don't prepare a seat for you at the table, bring your own chair.
Bring your own
Bring
chair.
your own chair to the table.
Own
Make
chair.
you a chair.
I'll make it, right? And I think that we have to learn how to bring our own chair to the table. Jacqueline said earlier about this feeling of invisibility. People make you feel invisible. They ignore you. They see you there, but they cut in front of you, knowing that you're there thinking you're not going to say anything. And we've all experienced this, but Kimberly, share with us how to take that seat at the table, how to bring your own chair to the table, because I know there's some people listening now. They're in corporate America. They're trying to get ahead. They want to get to that next level in their career, but they're like, y'all said bring my own chair to the table. How am I supposed to do that? How do I bring my own chair to the table?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked that question. So let me tell you real quick about me. I've worked for Pepsi in sales. I work for Macy in management. I work for Orange County Public Schools in supply diversity, as well as the Orlando Airport in supply diversity, some major corporations. I worked on projects for the Florida Department of Transportation and the U.S. Department of Commerce. Okay, so I said that to say this, is that there are some similarities and differences. And so before you can even know how to bring yourself to the table, you need to know transitioning over, okay? So what's similar is that you're going to need a village to be successful. You're going to have a mentor and a sponsor, just like Cheryl said. And you have to continue to grow until you're ready to transition to owning your own business, right? But the most important thing is you have to bet on yourself. And I didn't even come up with that. When I decided to start my business, the person I was working for, she said, "Oh, you're going to bet on yourself, huh? You're going to start your own business and bet on yourself?" And I said, "Yeah, I am. I'm going to take all that past experience, all that intellectual property, and I'm going to bet on myself because I got 3 kids to take care of. They're my legacy. That's why my company is 3D Strategic Management, Dallas, Dakota, and Destin. I get up every morning and I work long hours. What they don't know is yesterday I have 250 clients in my portfolio. I'm a business coach among the 4 things that I do. So 3 of my clients received an award down in Miami last night. I got on the road. I took my kids to school. I drove to Miami. I was at the award ceremony for 5 hours. I coordinated my kids to be picked up and I drove back, and I got back at 10:30 last night. I own my own business, and it's important for me that my voice in everything I do is because I have a legacy that I'm building. So some of the things that are different really quick is I have to be careful what I say, because everything that I do personally is tied to my business. When you work for a corporation, you could get fired. You're fired. You move on, you get another job. If I say something in this role for those that want to start entrepreneurship, you have to be mindful of your voice in everything you say, because it is tied to my grandkids, and that's how I think about it. So the other thing too is that you go from having a sponsor to a mentor. I currently now have other women business owners that pour into me, right? You have to continue to grow. It doesn't stop once you own your own business. Matter of fact, you're more responsible because I have a team of 12. So if I don't get up and move my feet, they don't eat, their kids don't eat, it's a problem, right? That's not a responsibility that you have on the other side. But I welcome that responsibility because I'm betting on myself, right? I got things I'm trying to do for these kids. It's churn, and keep it Southern with you, okay? So those are the things that I want to instill in the women. Also, I want to make sure real quick after these 2 books. One, Invisible Women. If you haven't read that book. The other one is Motherhood Penalty. And Motherhood Penalty is important for you to read because those that are young, we have some young women on, when you decide that you want to be a mother, there's a cost to being a mother in your profession, in your career, right? So when 2 different things, when you think about the fact that you're going to have a baby and it has to be planned, and if it's not planned, you still got to start planning, okay? However, it may be planned, okay? Because the moment that you have a child, you're going to take time off from work. That means you're not investing in your retirement. That means you're not investing in your intellectual property, growing in that business. You're taking time away from your growing yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, because the penalty of motherhood is great it's even greater when you work for someone else. Now, for those that own a business, you can wallow on into the office. You can still work. You can flex your hours. If you're sick, you can change your hours from 10 to 6 at night. But I want you to understand that if you go into business, if you are a mother, there is a penalty, but there's also a reward. You have to know the penalty, but you have to know the reward. And so the reward is that you have a legacy, that everything you're doing today will be left and passed down. So you have to know your voice in both roles in a corporate environment, but also when you own your own business. So that's what I have for you.
All right, we're out of time.
No!
Where did all the time go? We have
I'm
so
sorry.
much, and I feel like, man, this has just been a drop in the bucket. So what I like to do is, as we get ready to just chime out today, I want to go to each panelist, and if you would just do 30 seconds, just share one key thing that you want to leave with everyone who is here. People are going to be following you on LinkedIn, probably on any of the social networks that are available that you're on. So they're going to do that. I've seen it in the chats. They're going to do that. But what is that golden nugget that you could leave with every single woman who is listening to this, and maybe men too, because my husband gets on me all the time. He's like, babe, some of that stuff y'all say is for women. We can use that too. And I'm like, yes, you could, but it's a sister girl thing. So what is something that you feel that is a golden nugget that you would like to leave with the ladies today? Joni, I'm coming to you first with your I Am Speaking t-shirt on today, representing our topic. And then Cheryl to you, then Jacqueline to you, and then Kimberly, final words.
Thank you, Servala. And first of all, this has been fabulous. Like, I'm thinking to myself, we just need to get together later at another time and just do this again. And we have some more questions and some more people. So, those who are listening, maybe we'll do that. In my 30 seconds, we've kind of hinted around it already, which is legacy. Legacy is what drives your mission. It's what drives your purpose. It drives what makes you get up in the morning. I have a 10-year-old son. He is my legacy. As nutty as he is, and as much, he's half me and half his dad, and all of that's just crazy in one little body. But he is my legacy. And I think that we have to focus on what that looks like, because there will be people who will come and try to tear your legacy apart. So you want to make sure that it is ironclad. You want to make sure that when you are no longer here, you are represented and people know that you were here. One of the people that I love from history, who inspires me and has inspired me for a really long time, anybody who's known me to more than 20 years will know that I talk about this person. It is the Pharaoh Hatshepsut from Egypt. She's the first and only pharaonic leader of an Egyptian dynasty, 18th dynasty. She's the 5th leader. For as much as she did, the people who succeeded her tore at her legacy. And yet there were still pieces and parts of her that showed up throughout history, so that now we know about her. We have a record about her because she was focused on the legacy, building projects, making money for the culture, changing things, doing relationships, all of the things that people who came behind her tried to do to tear it away. Her legacy still stood, and we need to focus on that.
All right. Well, thank you, Joni. I didn't know about the Pharaoh, so I've gotten a golden nugget myself. Thank you for that. So for me, I want to say that follow your. I mean, I don't know what your faith is, but my faith really plays a huge role in my life, and particularly on how I actually stepped out from a 20-year career in corporate America to becoming an entrepreneur almost 15 years ago. And so listen to God's voice for you, because he's directing you in your path, and let your curiosity carry you wherever he leads, and to have faith in yourself. I heard, other panelists talk about that. Believe in yourself and surround yourself with people who believe in you. And if you do that, there's nothing you can't conquer. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you all today.
Okay, I think for me, it's about being authentic, being you. I mean, there's millions of people in this world. And one of the quotes that I saw, it says something to the effect of, people are busy living their lives. So you should really be living your own life, right? You can't live the life of another person. And we are here and we have our personal journey. So make it about you. How are you going to show up and be you? And we're all a work in progress. So if the way that you show up, there's things that you still want to do to improve, whether it's you're running your own business or in your corporate environment, just be true to who you are and just know that you're on your own journey, and just continue to build on being a better version of yourself every day. And it's been great sharing this space with you all today. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right, I'll make it quick. Forgive yourself for the things that you haven't done right. That laundry that's still sitting on the couch, forgive yourself for it, okay? All right, but encourage yourself to be better tomorrow. And for those, Joni, I'm glad you kind of put the T on the ball for me to hit. I have a Women Empowerment Wednesday that I host every month. I decided to pour back into women. So we've been able to reach 1.5 million women across the world in 9 countries. And every month I bring business women together holistically to look at mental health, physical health, looking for contracts, supplier diversity for that purpose. And we're now in our 2nd year. So, and it's free. So it's Women Empowerment Wednesday. We have a YouTube page. You can look at several. We've had Regina Hill and Dr. Glover. A lot of different women have come on. So pour into yourself, continue to pour into yourself, continue to pour into whatever it is that God has put you here to do. You have a purpose. Like Cheryl said, everybody has a purpose. Find your purpose, build your brand, and grow, and you'll be successful.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. If you didn't get anything out of this, you must not even been here. You must have had us all on mute all day, because there's been so many powerful nuggets that have been shared with each and every one of us. If I were to close this out with some key points, or just one key point that I think is a rolling theme, there is a quote by Erwin Markham, and he says that to dream the starry dream is to fight life through until your dreams come true. Ladies, fight life through until your dreams come true. We're going to turn it over to Stephanie to close out our time together today. Or Kimberly, sorry.
All right, thank you so much, ladies. OMG, what can I say? I think that we probably needed a little bit more time, but we were trying to be respectful of your Saturday morning. So we will definitely have to have a part 2, as Joni said, and hopefully we can do something where we can meet in person. So I just want to say thank you again to our wonderful moderator, Servola, our amazing panelists, Cheryl, Joni, Jacqueline, and Kimberly. You ladies are phenomenal. To all of our attendees, we thank you for joining us this morning. At the end of this session, once we close out, you will receive a short survey. We do ask that you just take a minute to complete 3 questions, rate the event, and also provide some feedback for us on this event, as well as what you would like to hear from us for future events. So please make sure that you do that. This forum will also be on demand. So for anyone that was not able to attend this, if you would like to share this event, it will be on the chapter's YouTube page, Central Florida NBMBAA. So please share this event. It will be available as of tomorrow, and watch it again. I know that I will have to go back and watch it again because I just could not write fast enough. But again, thank you so much. And if you are not already following our applicable media pages, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and definitely check out our website for updates. And also if you have not joined our newsletter so that you can receive monthly news about what's going on with our chapter. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Continue to be amazing women that you are. And for the men on the call, continue to be the amazing men that support the amazing women. And we will hopefully see you soon. Stay safe. And have a wonderful rest of your Women's History Month. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.